Hello, everyone. My name's Yuta Jazz, and we are going to continue the Occult Saga podcast where we talk about spirituality and all of that jazz. So, today we're talking about initiations because there's two topics I got lined up, and so far it's initiations, and the other ones are kind of here and there. But initiations are like one of the most biggest aspects of the spiritual journey in general. But you can also kind of look back to see how they're big in life in itself. Like we kind of get initiated in and out of every life stage, every life like big aspect or experience or role or title or label, right? It's just all over our life and all over the way we kind of go through life. And um, it's basically a sign of you going into a gift or talent or maybe even just a style of life, a role, right, an activity through being kind of trialed, tested, learned, taught the ropes beforehand, or kind of like brought up to speed to then kind of lift off and have that experience and be that person and do that thing. Initiation can also just happen for the point of like getting into specific groups, specific um, positions, specific like roles as a healer, especially as well. The spiritual part of initiations, why it's really important, is so people don't get ahead of themselves into something that they can't handle. It's kind of like you don't necessarily want a person that is, let's say, afraid of blood to be a surgeon, for example, right? Or a person that can't deal with people and their emotions to be a psychologist or social worker, right? Or a person that doesn't understand how parts and electricity and all the other stuff like that works to be an engineer. Like you just you don't really want that. It's not gonna work. So initiations are kind of like interesting in the point that they do bring people up to speed to be that person and to start living that life, but they can also keep people away. It's a very simple method of gatekeeping people. A lot of the time, people are aware of initiations happening because someone else initiates you into this thing. So they can be, I don't know, a teacher, another like witch in this case, another healer, another practitioner, right? And they initiate you into becoming a person that's like the same or coming up to be the same. There's also like different levels, right? One can be an apprentice, another person can be like literally like an expert or a master. So a very common example is like people getting initiated into becoming tarot readers. It's very common in across the globe, interestingly enough. Most people believe that your first tarot deck should be gifted to you, so you get initiated and called into the path. It's not quite true, in my opinion. A lot of people are starting to get out of it because, well, even just from my experience, like you don't know who's gonna give you the tarot deck, and you don't know what energy you're going to be dealing with, right? And you don't necessarily want like that to be a start of your tarot reader's journey. Some people, they're not going to become psychics really with it. They can use it for themselves in mental health and emotional like awareness and in general like kind of connecting with themselves and their intuition, right? But maybe they're not going to become big readers for other people or healers in that sense, right? Maybe they just need to have the approach for themselves and just continue that on. So you don't really need to get initiated into it then, right? You can just kind of go and take it up yourself. But also, like a side note of it is we can initiate ourselves. We don't necessarily need to be initiated into anything specifically by other people. Some of us do, some of us don't. I'll get into the difference between that in a bit, but others, there's just going to be a life where you follow and you keep following and you keep being initiated into something. You keep being taught. The way you know that you yourself are initiating yourself and life is initiating you as well, kind of lined up with that, right? Is that one, you have a calling, a passion, a niggling, something you cannot stop going after that keeps coming back in your life or interesting you or just like appearing in a weird sense and way where it's like very much connected to you or for you in some way or just makes you feel certain things and touches you on a deeper level. You start following that path, you have ease in following that path. For some reason, you have those experiences other people couldn't. You get those resources, those chances, those opportunities, those chance meetings with other people. You have an easy access to information. You digest it a lot easier than other people. You just get it, and life gets you as well. It catches you to have these experiences. So you are self-initiating, but also you're being initiated by the world and the universe because it sends you signs. It calls on you. You can't get away from those topics. You keep getting resources even though you don't ask for them. Literally, it can happen. And a lot of people in this day and age of spirituality, they do get initiated that way. We don't have the same collective community. We don't have the same understanding of tribe and covens and I don't know whatever suits you for the analogy. We just don't have that. We're a lot more isolated, and in general, maybe spiritualists would gather back in the day, but through the course of history, how humans have evolved, everything else, usually spiritualists are now scattered across the planet and they have to do it on their own. Yeah, there's places that are more spiritual than others, but then you also, as soon as you get into a spiritual community, you understand that it's not just all light and love, right? You quickly understand that people and humans and groups and whatever are just the same everywhere else. There's good and bad with it. There's something to look out for and not to follow like religiously and other aspects to it that maybe for some would be actually better to be avoided altogether, right? But in general, it's still a thing. It's just not as common as being an individual on the spiritual path and doing it yourself. Because that's when in the current like paradigm we're going through, people really get brought up to speed and become who they need to be or want to be or signed up to be the best and the easiest because most of us have come from lineages and ancestry and families that have nothing to do with spirituality. Most people, if they have anything going, it is religious, right? It's not really even faith a lot of the time or spirituality. It's just follow a doctrine, follow like a lifestyle, but they don't touch base with it as much. Some people do, but they then actually follow their own faith, right? And they figure it out, even if it's through a religion. But it's very much systemized and confined. It's not the same as going through your own initiation of like realizing and waking up like, oh shit, apparently my family has this weird quirky talent with being very, I don't know, good with people managing social cues, charisma, speeches, voices, talking, and leadership, right? But then if you go beyond that, you can find out, I don't know, a spiritual lineage of like leading, I don't know, witches or something like that, right? Maybe some people also even find out nobility behind their blood, whereas beforehand they didn't know that they had any noble blood of any sort, whether it's like practical or spiritual, because you can either have both or one or the other or none. Other people find out like, oh shit, actually, my whole family are actually like derived from traveler witches, or we have shamanic roots, or we have pagan roots, or we have druidic roots, right? And you kind of like follow wherever you're being called to then realize more of like the family you come from, or the ancestry, or the vibes, or the talents that you hold on a spiritual level. Most of the time, you're not gonna have the luxury of someone taking you through it and being like, "Hey, hi, yeah, you as my child will learn this and figure it out because I understand and know." Most of the time, at that point, the child can be a teacher to the parents, but there's a missing gap in the link. And it's kind of just like skipping to the generation that is equipped to actually realize this truth and bring it back forward in a healthy new way instead of like, being shackled down by family tradition or skepticism or what do you fucking call it? I can't remember the fucking word. It's also an S word. Not skepticism, but not superstition, but it's when it's like there's angst and whatever behind it. But let's just keep it going. So yeah, you're going to have to figure it out yourself. You're not going to have evidence a lot of the time. You're going to just kind of need to follow what you're being called to, trust spirit and your own spiritual journey. Figure it out from the inside out, not from the outside in. The outside is going to have signs and reaffirmations and synchronicities and other things that like keep you going to figure this out. It's not going to be passed down to you or handed down to you. If it is, it's a whole new other thing, right? Um, I haven't met too many people that have actually had it passed down to them, from what I understand. I think some people have more spiritual support than others when it comes to certain things like that. But ultimately, when it comes to like the very much practical side of it, I haven't met too many people that have it passed down to them early on. The only thing I know is some people do have that experience with parents that are exploring more of the dark arts, which that's a whole life thing we don't really want to delve into. It's not usually a great experience. There's a lot of like abuse and trauma behind that. But for others that have parents that are interested in like witchy woo-woo stuff or herbalism or yoga or meditation and chakras and all of the other stuff, or are quite spiritually inclined and just, being like a holistic healer person. It's kind of like the kids are exposed to it way earlier than others. So they start their spiritual realization, even practice life at like 12, 14, 16 at the latest. Whereas others that aren't initiated through their family, they have no one, right? They themselves start opening up to it when the time is right or when the calling needs to be answered, which that is divine timing and that is kind of up to like universe and God and obviously your higher self kind of all like synchronizing up for that. So usually I've noticed it happens around the time when you're kind of getting into your own vibe, or after real traumatic things happen where a lot of stuff falls away and you don't have those attachments. So you're either moving out to be more of an individual, or you actually have stuff that happens that pushes you to become that individual. Either way, you can follow paths that are kind of like nuanced and unorthodox. You can spend years to then become like where, your cultural roots kind of would have taken you either way. Like let's say I'm from Lithuania, so the most normal thing I've noticed in terms of like faith or religion or spirituality that's coming into the forefront after 10 years of this is I am a white pagan Christian witch because I can understand some details of like Christianity and there's like icons that speak to me from that point, right? I also criticize the fucking church a lot or support it if it's cool, but I don't really follow that notion. Like I'm not devout. And mostly I do witchy things in practice and rituals and ceremonies that would be considered pagan. I also use, tarot cards. It's a main thing of spirituality, but divination of any sort is across the whole planet. It's just the most common medium currently, right? But I could use runes if I was called to it. I'm just not. But that's just an example from like me. If you're, from America, Australia, Egypt, or Asia or whatever, you'll have other aspects of that. You might be Native American, you might be Aboriginal, or have roots, or have like half descent or something, right? You could be a person that's very much in tune with like Buddhism or temples or other stuff. Sometimes you go through a ring of it and you don't realize, oh, I have this like connection to this faith or religion or practice, and it's on the other side of the world, but I feel like I'm actually being called to it and initiated. Or maybe I'm just learning from it as a branch to kind of fill in my own understanding and follow in my own shoes, right? Because from what I've noticed, considering that we're in this new age of spirituality and the internet and technology and everything else, like, yeah, certain things are gonna still call to us, but sometimes we don't actually come from where we come from. Like, for example, I'm a person that's connected to the land and the teachings and the type of like spirituality that was here or more prominent throughout like the history of this place, but I could have been, I don't know, freaking something completely else, not a Christian white pagan witch, right? And that's overall just a label. I don't need to fall into it. It's just kind of like how do you explain what type of music you listen to, type of thing, right? It doesn't need to be like a label behind you. Same for you and where you're going to be initiated or what spiritual practices you're going to follow or what you're going to actually do. So yeah, if anything, follow your path and like trust it because you might be called to collectives that aren't really around anymore. You might be like a branch of a person or and then like that's gathering an understanding with a religion you don't get integrated to, you don't actually follow. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think of examples, but like Hermeticism, Golden Dawn, the Sisterhood or Brotherhood of the Rose are examples. Because the thing is, when it comes to others, they're actually like organizations and industries and religions, yeah. And some people don't follow in their steps, but they become a practitioner because they have either a connection or they need to realize something from that religion or some or collective or whatever. So it could be Masons and Masonry, right? But you don't actually integrate with them. It could be some type of church in Egypt or a certain like priest or priestesshood. It could be anything, it depends on where you're from and what is calling you. Because you might migrate because of it or through it or with it, right? But also spiritualists, they don't need to be one thing these days. You're gonna probably learn everything from every single like corner of the earth just to bring it into whatever your understanding of it is to bring out your gifts and talents. I don't have any connection to Eastern methodologies or anything else like that. I've never been to the Far East, but I am really connected with the idea of like wind and chi and chi, whatever you call it, the energy of like everything and also the body. I am connected to some aspects of how they perceive like elements or seasons, but I more so understand elements and seasons from where I am. But the chakra system is such an important aspect of like learning that everyone gets initiated into at least like looking over it, right? And everyone from there on out realizes how their chakra body works because all of these concepts are old. We don't need to follow them. We need to evolve them as we are evolving is kind of the point. You get initiated because you have some type of fortitude behind what you can like achieve or learn through it, right? You have like this you have like the brains, the guts, the energy for it, the personality, the soul, the whatever it is this lifetime to crack the code of whatever it is. You could say that's basically like how people are being called to initiation so they can actually like not just evolve themselves and be called to that group or status or role or label, but also to literally evolve spirituality as it is currently right now. Because as it is currently right now, we don't know shit. We kind of follow older notions most of the time. Most of the time, not everyone. I think a lot of people do a lot of new things, and it's picked up in the recent years, especially. But people like following rather than doing and figuring it out themselves. And because of it, we don't have as much capacity to really use spirituality and spiritual tools and all the other stuff behind it as efficiently as we could have back in the day. That's just the sad truth about it, for real. Um, because there's a misconception that you need to follow it like a fad, and if you just, check the boxes, or you spend enough time learning it, or you dig into it from the logical, practical thing of this thing is outside of me, you're going to be a part of it, right? You're gonna like unlock its mysteries and secrets. But the thing is, it's working more and more and more the other way around, because as we're changing, life is changing. All of these modalities and spiritual truths are changing, and we need modern, real um, archetypes of wisdom for it. We need real speakers and priestesses and priests. We need real magicians for it. We really need the people that can bring truth or understanding or like realization from those things, you know? We need people that can discover and bring it back and explain it. And a lot of people are just doing the discovery. Some people are going to do the explaining. In general, it's a huge collective like push towards that, because that's like a thing for every collective currently right now. It doesn't matter which part of the world you're from and how long or how much everyone practices whatever they practice there. If they're not applying it to the shifts that happen energetically, astrally, and then metaphysically and physically, it's not gonna really hold up, really. There's so much misconception in how chakras really work. There's so much misconception in how to apply that for each individual. Same goes for basically anything and everything else, right? Um, when it's more practical, yeah, we can kind of set it into a point of like, we know what herbs work with what the most, right? We know how yoga works, right? What it's the scientific side is. We can apply that side to it. But when it's completely energetic and spiritual, we are still bringing a lot of notions to connect with it. Like astrology, for example, nothing's the same as it, when it was first becoming a thing. We are currently evolving with it, realizing it, and bringing the truth that it can bring, bringing information, and also realizing how we need to look at it. How do we divinate it? How do we connect with it? How does every person connect to the energies of the cosmos and galaxy and planets and stars? And how do we really correlated down here? How do people even get into this themselves? Because there's different ways we can actually look into it right now. We have more tools to do it with, but more time has also passed where we're kind of like, we need to deviate from learning the actual teachings behind it and saying that's the right thing, and understanding that actually that comes from us. But it is still effort, right? How much do you need to like study before you can explain some craft that isn't even here yet on a tangible scientific level, right? In the society we're currently living in. So initiation can be very big or small. You might be initiated to just doing a craft. You might be initiated to becoming a whole healer and person. You could be initiated to just becoming your own truer identity when like that emerges out, and maybe you aren't going to be as high up there as like a true healer or master or whatever, right? There's also different levels of healers and masters as well. So it's important to remember that all of it is important. Like all of it is relevant. It doesn't matter if you're going to be the next I don't know, Teal Swan or whatever, right? But it also is kind of important to remember, like, if you're not that level, but you're a master healer or something, right? You can have your own practice. That's just as beautiful. And if you don't do any of it, but you read tarot for yourself, you meditate, maybe you enjoy yoga or whatever, you find your own faith behind even a religion or following like teachings like that, go into it. Like, get into it. If something's calling you, it's calling you for a reason. And you might just be surprised how, when you don't think much of yourself or feel like the big shot, you might become a priest or priestess or shaman or druid. You might become an actual healer. You might get into Reiki and be able to just treat yourself and heal yourself and your pets, maybe, right? Maybe it kind of branches out. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's just something you do for fun in your free time and you're like, astrology really makes sense to me. I'm gonna fucking do this. I'm just gonna do it for myself though. I don't really need to be the next astrologer or do this as a service for other people, right? There's so many astrologers that just like getting the gossip and things. So that's what they do. But you also might get initiated into a thing you've never heard of before, and you kind of find people along the way. Someone maybe calls you into a group where you spend some time in a temple, or you go on a fucking pilgrimage and you gotta connect with like God for yourself, right? Or you notice that for, I don't know, 7 years of your life you're really working with like a deity of like, I don't know, Hindu or Egyptian origins, and your life really changes, and that was the whole point. You went through, I don't know, a big paragraph of like multiple year initiation. Because the thing is, like, this isn't a short-term thing. A lot of the time, it takes a while for the initiation to occur. Um, Sometimes it can happen overnight, but it's not really a thing that just happens overnight, right? The best example I can have is being initiated into being like an adult or teenager or whatever. You spend so much time being a fucking kid to grow up to have a celebration of, hey, you're an actual, like, official, lawful adult, or hey, this is your quinceañera, right? Or hey, uh, the Jewish like collective also has something. I can't remember the name of it actually though. So that's just an example. But everyone at 16, 18 has something, right? And it's a big thing for them. Even if it's not a big commemoration for you, you're still being initiated into your own truth of being like older or an adult or starting to live a different stage of your life and it not really being the same anymore. Same as with spirituality and any label, role, or practice you might get into. You get prepared over usually a course of years you don't even notice. Then it might become a bit more apparent to you when you start exercising it more directly. Then after it's finished, you actually notice that you have like something stick out in your reality. Like it's as if the universe commemorates the point of like, hey, you got this skill. You're now officially a person that can practice tarot, healing, astrology, rituals, ceremonies, magic, right? Like you can officially teach people about crystals or use them to like this capacity. Now we're going to teach you another level of it or a whole different subject and branch of it. But also, once you got initiated, you're not quite yet a master, even though you already have the role and the title of it. There's different levels. You might just be starting out, so yet again, you're an apprentice before you become an expert, right? And you might become an apprentice of so many other things when you actually grow older and you become a master of others. So it's a constant evolution journey. You can't really get away from it. You can stifle some of it. You can stop yourself from becoming the person that's going to be like, I don't know, um, you can try and stop yourself from being the person that maybe the universe or God is calling you to be, but usually you're still going to have something to do with that craft. Even if you avoid the role and the official lifestyle, right, you're still going to be a person that's really talented in something, and you might just try and bring it down to a more practical level. So instead of being a spiritual counselor, you might become a therapist, right? So still initiated into a role of similar sorts, but more so through more like legal and tangible means of like college and government and healthcare system, right? Whereas others are going to have to go through their own personal like reworkings, learning whatever they do through their spiritual path and then bring it into a self-sustained business or something like that. So many levels on it. You could just become the elder of the community that everyone knows, like, oh, that's the person that gives life advice. That's the person you might want to check in with before you go getting sick like more than you are currently, right? So you can avoid the doctors. Maybe they prescribe you some like teas and home remedies that really fucking do work and have a scientific background without everyone knowing it for sure, but it still works, right? The person that does clearings or healings or can help you deal with ghosts or I don't know, freaking demons in your house, right? The person that knows symbology and crystals and whatever, superstitions. So, yeah, initiation reaches everyone on some level. Spiritual initiation can surprise you because you'll be called to it by yourself. If you do find people along or among like along your way, usually I've noticed people don't stay where they get called. It's a step on the journey. Until you get to the place you belong to be in, it's going to be a few initiations. Because usually when you make it to the group you're actually going to be a part of, everyone's already went through enough initiations to really be prepared to continue on with a group that's oriented the same way, that has the same type of thinking, and is now called to create something in the world, to actually bring out something new, to create something bigger as well than just what the individual or two other people with the individual could create and make. And even then, most things are temporary when it comes to spiritual groups and people like that. From what I've noticed, they come in and out. You don't really stick around with them for forever, but that's kind of the purpose of it. It's a journey. You keep going. You'll get called in, called out, and you're gonna keep on learning new things. And it's a beautiful thing. Yeah, I guess my initiating thought would be like, if you think someone needs to initiate you and you keep being called and you keep having the nagging feeling and you can't get away from it, fucking just do it. Just go ahead and do it. Because it's happening to you for a reason. You're the universe experiencing itself. If the universe is setting you up for it, that's as good as it's gonna get. You don't need another person to give you permission for it. But you do need to do that for yourself. You need to accept the point that you're shifting and changing and something weird might happen because of it, and that you're going to follow, I don't know, crystals or tarot cards or runes or whatever other type of divination, right? You're going to try and figure out how manifesting works, rituals and ceremonies, you're going to check out how altars work and whatever, and you're just going to do it the way you can figure out how to do it. A lot of people use YouTube and Google these days. Some people get lucky and they find books, which are kind of like big antiques for them. It's like a milestone because you find it through the family or something, right? Or it gets gifted to you, or you're walking around in the city and then you go somewhere and you find like an explanation or an event, a tutor, a teacher, like whatever it is, right? But other times you got to do it yourself. And if it's like first try out Google and YouTube, see examples, and then just do your thing and see what happens and see what the energy is behind that, like what evidence you get, and you keep on doing that over and over again, you'll see that you start creating it yourself. You don't necessarily need to get clues and follow them. You start creating it yourself. You start realizing where you can kind of move with it and do it, and you gotta follow yourself. It's not about getting into it and following the right things. It's literally about following yourself and figuring that out, because intuition, divination, and energy, it's not subject to fact. There's so many different varieties of it and examples that it's kind of like if the person doesn't understand themselves and what they're doing as themselves, you won't figure out this thing either. Because once you figure yourself out, you can apply that knowledge to the subject. And from there on out, you can apply the knowledge of that subject to its different varieties and how it's changed for other people or suits them, because it suits you in your relationship, right? But everyone's going to have their own relationship. But through your relationship, you realize this whole subject, this whole thing, this whole whatever it is. But if you don't get yourself, you don't get how it doesn't work for you, works for you, what the fucking thing is, why to follow it, why not to follow it. If you just follow something externally of yourself and you keep reading that, you're going to be following that external guidance constantly, thinking you need to keep following it. Otherwise, you don't know shit. You're in the dark. You're worthless. You're useless. You don't know, right? And that's just not true. people that get initiated into this, they need to figure it out for themselves within, not say, "Oh, I'm just gonna study this thing and I'm gonna get good and a master behind it." That's when they start spouting shit that doesn't actually help or work. An example I have is like I do counsel spiritually privately in real life, online, and as well with Twitch and YouTube, right? The thing is, I have many different people from many different walks of life. I have had that all my life. I have people that are very basic and live a grounded life of a human, and that's the language I need to use with them. And others that are like way woo woo, they're getting their own like prophecy vibe fulfilled type of lives, right? And they're really hyper like spiritual. I'm gonna sometimes need to move people a bit closer to spirituality or closer to touching grass. And I need to be aware of how to do it. I need to understand that not everyone is just my ideology of understanding of what life is. When I'm counseling someone, they're teaching me something too. Even if I am guiding them and opening their life to magic or helping them change or get healthier or figure something out or do something, regardless of that point, my clients are still someone that I need to respect in where they are, who they are, their boundaries, their livelihoods, their existence on a soul level and practical level. I can't just come in and be like, oh yeah, you're an alien and you need to ascend to this thing. But how the fuck is it gonna help some of them? And for others, that's the thing and the conversation, the woo-woo conversation they need because they're feeling anxious and pain and illness and mental health issues. And because they have not been brave enough to conceptualize it and just keep on living their lives, it's gotten worse for them. And we do need to delve into it. But others, that's not going to help them. I need to help them in terms of like, how do you actually figure out how to deal with I don't know, online stalking, electronic like fraud, right? How do I deal with this relationship and with my romance life? How do I get healthier and quit things? How do I get a new job? How do I find it? How do I go through this moment of restlessness without having a job? It's very important to respect the human at all points, even if we're going really woo-woo. So, if you follow a doctrine you're going to teach a doctrine. If you follow yourself and figure out life through you're going to teach life. It's going to line up with a lot of crazy shit out there, but it's important for the person to be real, not for the idea outside of them, this teaching, this science to be real, because we're evolving, so do these things evolve too with us. And we need to apply it to different types of people all around. Everyone's not going to benefit from the same treatment. Um, and you're not going to connect to them spiritually or energetically or practically to do the service of, a divinator or a healer. And if it's not like to that level, same goes for you. Do you really want to get strung up about some type of freaking weird idea about existence and how it is? And oh, that like this is the only way, and you are everyone else besides this is wrong? And just keep going by that illusion without questioning it, right? Or do you take what you can learn from it and then grow spiritually through your own choices of exploring and developing? Because it's a lot more fun when you figure out something inside and then it gets reflected and life changes instead of you trying to force something outside of yourself to fit into you and to then live by that. It doesn't work that way. We've all really tried to be a part of something and to follow something, and it doesn't work that way. And initiations are a great way to deter people from doing that mistake or to basically push them towards the edge and be like, jump, you'll be fine. We'll catch you. So yeah. Um, I don't know. Reflect on what initiation you're going through, if any, and if not, check out what initiation you want to experience. Maybe look back in life and see like what initiations you went through. Because it's a cool concept, honestly. It's very much important in just life, as I've noticed or realized, and it's not gonna go anywhere, honestly. It's always gonna happen throughout all of our lives. We're just all different people going into different directions, having different types of like transitions, right? So, and this I guess was an episode where we spoke about the spiritual but also practical aspect of it and why it's important and where it's going. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed. I definitely did. This was a really good yap because there was a lot that kind of felt like it could come through, and I'm sure with time I'm going to have more to talk about this one because I don't know. I just have this weird feeling of listening back to it and then having like a part two where I added more details on some practicality behind it or how, the line of this experience goes or whatever. But you can also help me by either posing questions in the comments or asking for specific explanation videos and topics through either my Discord, Twitch, or YouTube, which all of that you can kind of figure out how to do. You can get into my Discord only through Twitch because that's just going to be, I think, like a baseline of like a boundary, a wall for certain people to cross over. Um, but yeah, besides that, I think that's everything. Yeah, I'll come back to you with another topic next week as per usual, because we're going weekly still, and we're coming back after yeah, after another week and another week and another week. No, I just was processing like when was the last break I took from these videos and the podcast, and that was fucking while ago. I think maybe Christmas when I was sick, right? Or the winter time. So we're probably gonna do this for the entire summer and whatever. And if you want a personal reading from me for free, I do recommend going and checking out my Twitter. If you don't, because that's where you can get information to watch my Twitch, where you can get the actual reading real time. Only minus is people do watch me while you get a reading, unless you're lucky, and even then there's a VOD. So if you want a private, check out my Etsy because it's also linked down below. And yeah, if not, pickup piles are a thing here too. So yeah, I wish you the very best and a lot of peace and blessings and prosperity your way, and I will come back with another one next week. Bye.